A mochi moment from Tara, who writes, "For years, all my doctor said was eat less and move more, which never worked. But you know what does? The simple eating tips from my nutritionist at Mochi. And after losing over 30 pounds, I can say you're not just another GLP-1 source. You're a life source." Thanks, Tara. I'm Myra Ahmed, founder of Mochi Health. To find your Mochi moment, visit joinmochi.com.
Tara is a Mochi member compensated for her story.
Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Inside Out Smile. I'm your host, Dr. Amber Q, and today I want to share a story about a recent adventure I had. And it's one that made me feel like a complete weirdo, but it also reminded me what it actually means to care for others, when it would be so much easier just to walk on by. And it is, in a sense, a Christmas adventure, and it involves a golden retriever and some keys in a door, and also a strange, uncomfortable experience of doing the right thing when every part of you feels ridiculous. So let me set the scene, because it was actually on Christmas Day. Now, for the record, as everyone knows, if you're a regular listener, I don't celebrate Christmas because I am a Muslim. And honestly, this time of the year often feels just performative to me. But for the past couple of years, it's actually felt very hypocritical. There's all this talk about peace on earth and goodwill, while simultaneously you've got Palestinian Christians being harassed and attacked in Palestine, as well as Palestinian Muslims. And, churches are being targeted and families are being displaced, and Palestinian Christian Santas are being beaten up. Yeah, and Christmas festivities are being stopped. This actually happened this year, as I'm sure it happened in the last couple of years. And the world, well, it just posts holiday messages, but while staying silent about what is actually happening to Palestinian Christians in the birthplace of Christianity. So it's very ironic indeed, that such injustices are ignored. And that hypocrisy sits heavy with me. But obviously I don't celebrate Christmas, and this story isn't about the holiday. It's about a moment that tested whether I live, by the actual values I claim to have. Whether I care about others even when it's uncomfortable, even when no one's watching, and even when I feel absolutely absurd. So let me set the scene. So obviously, I do enjoy having a holiday. I don't celebrate Christmas, but I really enjoy the fact that the world just quietens down. There's less traffic on the road. People are just jolly and lovely. But they should be like this all the time. But in any case, I enjoy that aspect of it, right? And of course, I've always said that I love fairy lights, and the streets are totally lit up by these beautiful displays. And so I really enjoy that. So here I was in the afternoon going for a walk, and I'd just been out to look at the pond and the birds and things. And I think I was walking back. No, I'm pretty sure I was walking back. And there was a house in the corner. And as I was walking by, I saw this gorgeous golden retriever just outside someone's front door. And initially I thought to myself, oh, is somebody out there with him? And then I realised there was nobody with him. And then I thought to myself, oh, this doesn't look right, because the door is closed. And as I kind of decided to cross over the street, and this retriever was so gorgeous, he sort of got up and he put his nose sort of in between, the picket fence, and he looked so sweet. And I thought, oh my God, have they just sort of, I mean, is he home alone? You know, have they gone out for Christmas and thought that they'd shut him in and he's actually outside? And then I noticed, you know, and all these thoughts were going through my head. And then I noticed that, you know, there was a set of keys hanging in the front door, just dangling there. And I thought to myself, oh my God, so have the people who live here gone out and the dog was meant to be indoors and somehow the dog got out and they didn't realize and they've left their keys as well. And then I was thinking, oh my God, what if someone's had a medical emergency or they were feeling really unwell and they kind of had gone for a walk and then stumbled indoors and left the dog and the keys outside. So all these things are racing around my head. And of course, I'm thinking about the fact that it's freezing cold. It was freezing cold and I was cold as well. And I was thinking about the poor dog outside being cold, and also the fact that, you know, somebody could steal the dog. But of course, now that I knew that the keys were on the outside of the house, anyone could unlock the door and walk straight in, you know. So I was in a little bit of a conundrum. Actually, initially, it wasn't that bad, right? Because obviously I was there and I was thinking, oh my gosh, let me just knock on the door and hopefully somebody is in. So that's the best case scenario, right? So I unlatched the gate carefully. And so it was a corner house and there were gates, I think, on both sides, but you couldn't really tell. They were nicely disguised, which is great, you know. So I unlatched the gate and I was mindful of the golden retriever because obviously I didn't want him to escape. So I latched the gate back. And it's a house that I actually really like. It's on the corner. It's got a picket fence, which is grey. And the front door is grey as well. And it's just really pretty. And the dog looked really good. You know, it was very picturesque as I'd walked past. But yeah, I was kind of like, oh, okay, hopefully they're at home. But I don't want to bother people because it's Christmas Day. And I was thinking, but the thing is, you know, somebody could steal the dog. So I was kind of thinking, I don't want to bother them. But the fact that they've got the keys on the door, I need to do something. So I was like, okay, because obviously, you know, when we genuinely care about others, we have to act upon that, right? So I was just thinking, the dog is on his own. He can't help himself. It's freezing cold. The keys are security risk. No one's around. I'm going to have to knock on the door. So I knocked on the door. Nothing happened. Oh, I should do some sound effects. I knocked on the door. Do you like that? No answer. So this time I was like knocking louder. Then I was like, hello, hello. And nobody answered. So I looked at the dog and the dog seemed a little bit anxious. I was like, oh, don't worry. So I started stroking his head. He was so sweet. I'm saying he, I don't know if it was a he. Anyway, I looked around and there was kind of no one on the street. And I was thinking, this is kind of awkward and this is worrying, because I think I was thinking, if nobody's home, what am I going to do? Because I can't leave the dog out here. I don't want him to freeze. And the keys are security risk. Do I go to the next door neighbours? Do I take the keys with me to the next door neighbours? You know, or do I just call the police? So these things were going through my head. But then I said, Amber, calm down. Calm down. Let's see if anyone is at home, because maybe if it's Christmas and they've come in and the dog's just slipped out, you know, they might just be, you know, celebrating and they may not have heard me knock. So this is where I started to feel a bit weird, because as I described, it's a corner house. And so the front door is literally sort of on the corner. So I think there was a longer side of the house with windows. I can't remember, maybe there were no windows on the other side. Anyway, so I thought to myself, I need to investigate, and I felt a bit strange. So I started looking through the windows And honestly, I was fully aware of how I looked. I'm circling someone's house, peering through the windows, and I thought, my gosh, if somebody's watching from somewhere else, they're probably thinking they should call the police on me. But I had to persist because of this lovely dog and because of the keys, right? So then I went across to one of the windows that was further away, and basically I was like, oh, this is strange, because as I peered through one of the windows, I saw this aquarium, and I mean, it was quite sort of it's winter, so it's cloudy, it's overcast, it wasn't a bright sunny day, and so I see this aquarium, and then I see a figure, and it looked as if they were pouring a drink from a decanter. And it was really bizarre because he was pouring a drink. It looked like a male. There was an aquarium glowing behind him. And the whole scene was just so, I don't know, specific, strange. I don't know. It just felt as if I'd stumbled into someone's private kind of moment, but it kind of felt like a movie, right? So this person is completely unaware that I'm outside, and I don't know if he realizes that his dog is locked outside and that the keys are in the door. He's just there in his own world, pouring his drink, and I'm standing there thinking, this is so odd, but it's quite an adventure. So because honestly, it felt like an adventure. It felt as if I was in some other reality where I was kind of, the protagonist in a story that I didn't quite understand. So then I knocked on the window and I was sort of, hello, and I sort of pointed towards the front door. So the chap notices me and then he moves out the room. So I'm thinking, yeah, he's going to the front door. So then I move to the front door and he opens the front door. And it was so interesting. So the door opened and it's a guy who is wearing a baseball hat. And it doesn't look as if he's very happy, if I'm honest. And he sort of looks at me and I was sort of slightly embarrassed, but I said, I'm so sorry to disturb you, but your dog was outside and your keys are in the door. And he looks at the dog and then he looks at the door and he sort of said, oh, it's fine about the dog. I mean, that's okay, but the keys, oh shit. Oh, excuse my language. And it was just, he was kind of like, oh, thank you. Merry Christmas. And the dog sort of went in. I think the dog was quite grateful to go in. And I don't know. It was just so weird. And I said, oh, same to you. And I said, I was just walking past and anyway, and then he shut the door and I carried on. And that was it. And I just felt as if I'd been on this whole adventure, circling this guy's house, peering through the windows, feeling like a creep, honestly, interrupting his decanter by aquarium moment. And his main concern wasn't the thing that I was worried about. He cared more about the security breach than his dog, which, fair enough, the security breach is a big thing. And maybe they let the dog out to wander around the front garden. I'm not sure. But I don't know, that's just how it is, right? So the dog was safe. The keys were sort of, removed from the front door and everything is okay. Everything is okay. And also, I don't actually know whether, I was thinking to myself, because he didn't actually fully look happy and he obviously had been drinking. He wasn't dressed in a festive way. As I said, he had a baseball cap on. And I just hope he was okay. But the thing that stuck with me was, honestly, I was just so happy that it had been resolved. The dog was safe and the security of the house was restored. And for those of you who don't know, I used to be a neighbourhood watch coordinator, which in the UK or in London is a thing where, neighbours watch out for each other and you have one person that's kind of coordinating those things. And that was me. So I feel like an extra responsibility. But on the other hand, it's very strange as a Muslim. I felt really happy that I was able to do a good deed. So I was really happy about that. And I felt that, I don't know, that he was unhappy. I hope he was okay. I mean, maybe he was just enjoying himself and having a drink, but it seemed as if he was on his own in the house. I don't know. And maybe he wanted, quiet time to relax, and maybe he was house sitting. Maybe that's why he wasn't that concerned about the dog. Because initially also I checked the dog's collar, because initially when nobody was answering and I was getting a bit desperate, and I checked the dog's collar, but he just had like a Christmas woolen sort of scarf. My poodle used to have a scarf that my mum had made him, but this was like a Christmas kind of thing. So there was no phone number, because that was the other thing. I thought to myself, oh, if there's a tag on the collar, I can call that number. And initially, before I decided to walk around the windows and knock on the windows, I was thinking, maybe I need to call the police. But I was like, should I go to the next door neighbours? But obviously I couldn't really leave the keys with the next door neighbours, because it was the corner house. And what if they were out because it was Christmas? So all these things were just running through my mind. And I had felt uncomfortable kind of going around the house. I did feel like a weirdo. And I didn't know how this person was going to react. And I don't know, I'm just so happy that there was a happy ending, and that made me really happy. And, it took a little bit of time. It wasn't convenient. It wasn't comfortable, but it was fine. There was no validation or gratitude. But it just felt, so good to have done a good deed. I love doing that. And I don't know, it's just, if something is wrong and you have the ability to make it right or to make it better, I think that one should do so, And as I said, I don't celebrate Christmas. So this isn't sort of a seasonal message about kindness that people can perform once a year and then forget about. Because honestly, I think, the world doesn't need that. What we need is people who show up in the uncomfortable moments, people who notice when something is wrong and they act on it, even when they want to just keep walking, even though they might look like a weirdo, they might look strange, and when they, get the response that they don't expect. I'm not even sure what response I expected, but I think maybe a little bit more, I don't know, a bit more emotion towards the dog, maybe. But I mean, the thing is, at the end of the day, the golden retriever couldn't advocate for himself. He was just vulnerable outside, dependent on someone noticing his situation and choosing to do something about it. And it was a really cold day, and I was cold, and I was thinking about him, just being cold outside. And when I think about that, I think about all the people in the world who are similarly voiceless, Palestinian families watching their communities be destroyed, people just suffering injustices everywhere globally that, that we could speak up about, but we don't, because either we don't know, we're uninformed, or it's uncomfortable, or because, I don't know, we're just not sure, I don't know what's going on or what sort of reaction we're going to get. So I think that real compassion means, I don't know, being willing to feel like a weirdo. It means giving those awkward adventures a chance to, I don't know, to play out, interrupting someone's decanter by aquarium moment, because something matters more than your own comfort. I think that, I don't know. It's just the standard, right? We act because something's wrong, and we show up because we should. That's it. So if you're walking through life, waiting for the perfect moment to help someone, waiting until it feels comfortable, convenient, until you're sure you'll be appreciated, well, you could be waiting forever. Sometimes I think more so when it's people that we know, we might be thinking, but is it worth me doing this? Because Are they going to appreciate it? But it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. It's, it's just doing the right thing. The real moments that matter are the awkward ones where something is inconvenient, uncomfortable, and we don't get appreciation. It's just that I think that, it's just those moments where you choose between someone's comfort and, I don't know, someone else's need, really. Choose the need every time, because we need to speak up for the voiceless. And sometimes, I don't know, it just feels like an adventure that you possibly didn't ask for. But yeah, it was fun in retrospect because it all turned out. I'm so glad that I didn't have to call the police. Mainly because then I would have been waiting in the cold for a longer time. And that poor dog would have maybe missed his dinner. Although I think at police stations, they do feed dogs. I remember years ago, a friend's dog escaped and we found him at the police station, and he'd been having a whale of a time, really enjoying himself, playing with the police officers, which was really funny. But I'd like to mention that sort of, as I'm sort of recording this, I'm thinking sometimes the most awkward moments are with the people that we know. And sometimes the most awkward moments can be with those that are closest to us as well. Because on the one hand, I don't really care what a stranger thinks of me. I wanted them to get the dog in and to get the keys sorted. And, the rest didn't really matter. Those things were important to me. But I think that sometimes things can be really awkward with those that we are closer to. And I think that can be really difficult. But again, even if you think that, the person doesn't care, or there's not a need there because you don't perceive that because you're seeing things from your viewpoint, I still think, it's wonderful just to make things right. We all feel when things are wrong. And I think that, sometimes if you've done something that's lovely while feeling absolutely ridiculous, I think those are sometimes the best moments to look back on. And those are the moments that you'll probably remember in life. And if you have had any of those incidents, please feel free to write in. I'd love to hear about it. I'll put my email on the show notes. And yeah, so until the next episode. Well, it's funny because the previous episode was just before Christmas, but as I said, I don't celebrate. There's the Islamic New Year, but obviously the Gregorian calendar, it's going to be New Year. So I guess, it's going to be January for the following episode next week. So I should say, well, I hope that it's a good time for reflection, I think. So I'd like to wish everyone a great time reflecting on sort of things that have happened, things that made you feel good, things that have made you sad. I don't know, times where you felt disconnected. It's such a good, any lessons that you've learned, any improvements you'd like to make in your health and your relationships. It's a really good time for reflection, but it's always a good time for reflection on a daily basis. And it's a great time for gratitude as well. But until the next episode, let's all create connection and let's not just change lives, but save lives.